Hi
Got it.
everyone, Elle Hackney here, ready for another YouTube interview. And this time, I'm very excited to be speaking to Jess Galatola.
Yay. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Jess. I'm very excited to have you on my YouTube channel because I understand your author journey has been a bit different. So, can you bring us all up to speed with how different it's been for you?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My journey began with a story that was very much based on my story. So everybody has a bit of a 2020 story. Mine was basically in 2020, we had a very big shift with the way our family was structured. I started the process of a separation. I had a little 2-year-old and 4-year-old at the time. How do you explain to a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old what's going on in the world, let alone in the home? Things are about to get incredibly different and feel very different. And I needed a story super quickly. So I didn't have time to find the right story. I just decided to sit down and write it. And it poured out of me that night. That story, I think I wrote in 30 minutes. And I read it every night to my kids for about 2 months to try and explain what was going to happen, what was going to change. Um, and then I shared the story with some friends who were like, you need to turn this into a book because this is going to help a lot of people. And I was like, yeah, just saying that because you're my friend. It's just a book that I wrote. It's not, I can't publish a book. And they're like, please do. Please get this out there. So I thought about it. I spent probably the rest of that year looking at the story and opening it up to more families, not just my very personal small family experience. And I wrote Some Families Change, and it's sort of, I call it my love letter to parents and kids because it's sort of a voice for parents who are going through this, but also for children. And it's basically if you need to explain something to your child about how families change, how they come in all shapes and sizes, how they might not always look the same, but there's always a home for you and always a person to love you, then hopefully this is the story that you find. So I submitted 2000 and end of 2021, and I heard back from two publishers, but the publisher who showed a lot of interest were EK Books. And I spoke to the amazing Anushka Jones, and we had a meeting, and she said, we're very interested in your book. And it kind of went from there. So I have been waiting on this journey from 2022 to publish this book and have it out to all of you next year in 2024. So I feel like I fell into this writing gig the other way around because I was teaching and I was working in curriculum and doing all sorts of things and not really thinking about writing. I wrote this out of a need, and then I just on a whim sent it off thinking, well, if it helps, it helps. And here we are. I should stop talking. I'm doing a lot of talking.
No, there's so much to unpack here for me because I have been following you for the little like for lots of reasons because you're really cool. But
Oh.
it's no, I like everything you're doing. But one thing I've noticed with your profile that drew me in was all the guidance and the intuition of the spiritual side of yourself as well. So I feel like you were almost sort of guided to be where you are today. And
Yeah.
so for all the new authors out there who've gone about it, I'm not going to say the typical way, but I'm going to say it the typical way. How, you
Mm-hmm.
think of all these stories, you get knocked back 300 times, and it's the 429th draft you've sent in that gets noticed. Your
Mm.
story is so different, where you wrote out a circumstance and you got published pretty quickly.
Yeah, it feels a bit tingly, a little bit spider sense tingling. It felt very much like a meant to be thing because I do think this book has the capacity to help people. I really hope that it does. Like, I would love to have manifested something really, really significant out of something that was actually horrible and really hard. And my boys are now 7 and 5, and it's a lot easier for them now than it was back then when we were first going through everything. But it's lovely for them to see that mum has done something for our family to sort of make sense of the things that went down. So yeah, it does feel like divine timing in a way. It felt just like it was meant to be, sort of thing. And I have since submitted so many different stories, and I now truly understand how difficult this industry is, how full on it is, how organized you have to be. Like, yeah, it blows my mind what I have learned since that point at the
Welcome
start.
to the 300 and Crickets Club.
Oh, thanks.
I
Happy to
really,
be here.
but I love that that you created something, and out of your heart, out of your pure intention, was nothing other than I want to do something for my family. And my intention here is to help others. And my intention here is to create something that will help people in the future. They may not need it now, they may need it later. And it may not even come from someone directly. Like a very special auntie or uncle or grandparent may pick up this book and give it to a child who they know. And it's not necessarily your specific situation. It could be
Yeah.
a parent has to go and work international for 6 months. A parent might be a pilot and be away a lot. A parent might be like, there's so many more scenarios that this book could help children with. So
You're giving me chills, Lauren, because you're basically saying some of the lines that exist in my book, and you use the example of an auntie. There's a very specific line in my book that says auntie might move in with you when your daddy cannot stay, and that's the really personal bit. That's our story. So the fact that you tapped into that again, it just shows me that this book is, yeah, it feels like something special, and I know it will help lots of people, because so many people go through this. You know, every time I talk to somebody about this journey, they're like, I need that book, or I know somebody who needs that book. I'm like, yeah, because sadly this is the world that we're navigating, with children who might lose a grandparent, or children who all of a sudden become part of a blended family, or, you know, all sorts of scenarios with parents going off to work who can't be at home with you. But just reminding kids how special they are and how loved they are, and how family there'll always be a family there. So that's kind of just the message I wanted to just flood the kids with love.
Oh, I love it. It's just such an incredible journey. Your journey is so incredibly different and from the heart and sincere. It's beautiful.
Thank
If I
you.
may touch on those, so you've
Yep.
submitted, EK very interested, sending you a contract.
Yeah.
How did you go with the illustrations process? Because this is one part that really, how much involvement did you have to see it come out how you envisioned?
Yeah. So if I go way back to the start when I was ready to submit, because everybody told me to submit, and I thought, but I don't have pictures. Do I need to go and try and illustrate something I can't draw? What do I do? And then finding out you don't actually have to submit with illustrations. That's how fresh I was to this. I had no idea. And before I even signed a contract, so I think this is how EK operates with picture books. They paired me with an illustrator first. So it wasn't until we had the illustrator and had agreed to that person that we then both signed the contract at the same time. So I had notice of this happening, but then it was like another couple of months before the contract was drawn up, because we were looking at a new illustrator. So Jenny Barrand is my illustrator. She is also a debut picture book gal. So this will be her first. So for both of us, this is a really special journey as well, because we're sharing it together. And I did have some say, so I definitely got a say in whether I thought, you know, those initial pictures from Jenny, those initial illustrations felt right. And of course they did, because she is just so good at creating feeling through her work. Just the way she uses light and shade and texture and color, like I can feel what's coming out of her illustration. So from there we signed a contract together, and, you know, along the way I was able to have some input. I wouldn't say a huge amount of input. One example, I made a suggestion, wouldn't it be really cool if on the back of the cover we could have a little stick family? And Anushka really liked that, so we ran with that. But I also felt the need as a freshie to step back and not, be overbearing about because it's not just my story. It's now Jenny's story, and it's going to be every family's story. So it can't just look like my family. And I think the main input I was able to have was to say this needs to just celebrate diversity in every possible way. And I think Jenny's just smashed that out of the ballpark. So yeah, some input, but also I knew it was important for Jenny to do her thing too. And as a debut illustrator, she's been lucky because we've had quite a bit of time between 2022 and next year to really work on this together. And so, yeah, she's done a beautiful job. Can't fault it.
And I really like, and I don't know if this is what you're aiming for, but I like how at the back you have the stick figures, because it reminds me of every four-wheel drive driving around Brisbane with the stick figure family. And it's almost like a little cheeky bit of your humor is in there as well. Like, it just sounds like it's a bit of a mixed bag of heart. Like, you've got the little stick figures at the back for a little bit of liveliness. It's a bit different. It sounds like both of you together have done such a great job of securing who you both are to show your work.
I think so.
Yeah. And so
I was going to say, Jenny blew me away, because when I saw the front cover and realized the concept was essentially 3 changing pictures of the same family on a fridge, I can't express to you how significant photos on the fridge is to me. Like, I have all the kids' artwork, all the kids' stuff, all the magnets. So I didn't put that into any brief. That's just where she landed. And so, yeah, I feel like we connected a lot.
Oh, that's fantastic. I am curious though, because you're both new to this experience, and a lot of people who are listening to my channel and read my author interviews, they're new as well. So we're not sure what to expect sometimes with this process. Tell me what's new for you too, because you're living it and you're going through it.
Yeah, it sometimes feels like just waiting and not hearing a lot and not knowing a lot. And I think I've learned to step forward and ask more and to really build a relationship with my publisher, because at first I was just petrified and scared. I even asked, do I just go back through the same process if I want to submit something else? And she sort of said, no, you can submit directly to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And even Jenny and I felt really guilty at the start, because we'd sort of connected and added each other on Instagram, but weren't really sure if we were allowed to talk or what we're allowed to say. And we're like, hi, nice to meet you. You too. I don't think we're allowed to talk about anything. I'll check. And so we didn't talk about the process until well into it, when we were allowed to share work. But it was nice to be able to get to know her and follow her story and see a bit more of who she was. It's hard as a first-time author. You have no idea what to expect. And I'm still waiting for a lot of the learning to happen. So I think that's why using social media is so important, because the things that I'm learning from the community are actually astounding. Like, that's where I'm getting all of my intel and my advice, and just meeting beautiful people like yourself and leaning on each other has been part of that process, because, yeah, it does often feel like crickets and you're not really sure what you can do and what you can't do.
So what I got out of that is 2 things. Firstly, so for new authors out there, once you do get your contract, it is possible to submit directly to the editors, etc., at the publishing house, and that the slush pile may not necessarily be an option again for you. So that's really cool. The second thing I'm picking up is that you're new to social media.
Yes, well, I've always had an Instagram profile that's mine, but at the start of this year, I was like, wow, all of these authors have profiles, and I didn't even share. I was saying to you earlier, I didn't even share the signing of my contract because I didn't exist until that point. This wasn't planned out. So at the start of this year, I think I had 30 followers. And I've been on a journey this year to try and, I don't know, show who I am, reach out, join the community, be part of the community, fit in, but I also don't have a book yet to keep putting in front of you. But also that's not exactly what the community is about. There's a whole lot of other things that you can offer and share. So yeah, so I'm kind of learning as I go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, she's real. She's on Instagram.
I am real.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. So I really like your profile and all the different things that you do to get yourself out there, because you have to be a bit brave. I think you have to be a bit brave anyway, because you really have to show truly who you are. And interviews like this, where you've shared something so incredibly personal, you know, to get your story. Why don't you tell us what you're doing on your Instagram to tell us about yourself?
Oh, I think you're right. You have to be yourself because you can't hide behind anybody else. I learned really quickly that I was not going to be able to be the person who has beautifully curated, perfect posts that all look a particular aesthetic. I can't do that. It's too much color. There's too much blah about me. So I just gave up on that. And I thought authenticity is all I've got to offer. So that's what I'll do. I actually did a course earlier on in the year with Scott Stewart around building up social media, and I took away a few really helpful pointers. One was that you're not just here to sell something. If you want to belong to a community, if you want people to follow you, you have to offer something to them. You have to be able to give back. And he had suggested, you know, you can also burn out doing that. So find something that you're passionate about, that you love, that you can maybe consistently do. So I had a long think about that. And that's kind of where I introduced very slowly the weekly tarot reading that I do. Because I've always loved tarot. It's always been a hobby. In 2020, I did a course to learn properly how to read. I've always dabbled, but learning the meanings of 78 cards takes a long time. So did that, and yeah, always have dabbled with tarot. And I was really nervous actually, because not everybody is about that sort of thing. Not everybody loves that, you know, delve into spiritual divination, and it could have tanked. But what I have found is there's a lot of people in the community who love it. And there are some who probably don't, but it doesn't seem to upset them that it's there. So, and for me, I have, as a, you know, drama teacher background, I have always loved storytelling in whatever format it comes. Like I used to produce musicals, and I think that's where I got all of that creativity and passion out. So for me, storytelling is tarot. Tarot is telling a story of what's going on, using the cards to tap into intuition and, you know, tell a story of what you see. So that went down really well. And the Friday haiku was just, he also said, you're a writer, you have to share your work. You have to find a way to share your work. It feels weird, it feels awkward and icky, but you should do that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe the baby step to doing that would just be a small poem. Why not a haiku that's really small and fun and just make it relatable? And yeah, they're sort of the two things I do consistently. Everything else is just me being a dag, really. Anything I'm adding
like your
on top
sunglasses,
of that is...
the sunglasses with the hundreds of thousands on them. I loved it.
And they were from the beautiful Claire Thompson. They were a gift. She
Oh,
is so generous, so gorgeous. And yeah, I received those the day I went to the Barbie movie with my mom, and I'm like, yes, these are amazing. So yes, I am a big giant sunglass fan. Sometimes I still think I'm 16 years old, and I think that reflects in some of my sunglasses choices. But yeah, it's about being yourself, isn't it? That's the main thing.
no,
But
I love it.
that course was really helpful. It really cemented and the final piece of advice I'll share that Scott shared was to just pick one platform to start with and really try and hone in on that platform and build up a profile. And so that's why I went with Insta.
Yeah.
I'm sort of not very present on Facebook, so maybe that's a next year plan. I don't know.
That's future Jess's problem.
That's the future Jess problem, exactly. Yeah.
No, I do. Like, so with the tarot that you did, I think it's more that you're giving a lot of writers some hope and some encouragement, because that comes in all kinds of forms. And I see online a lot of authors posting these lovely, lovely memes of get it, you can do this, you've got this, all those typical ones. Whereas I think what you're doing is just giving everyone hope, but it's in a different format and it's multiple choice.
Yeah.
So you can either choose pile one, pile
Yes.
two, or pile three.
That's it. It's fate. It's up to you. You're really
Yeah.
choosing. And, someone said to me, well, you could just put out the cards that you think would help. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm flipping out the cards, and whatever pops out for that pile, that's what they get. And, part of it is how you're going to interpret that message. So, because there are some dodgy cards in tarot that you don't always want. We might find that out in today's reading, which is all about, have you been naughty or nice for Christmas for a bit of fun? There are some dodgy cards, but it's how you frame it, and it's the message you take away and what you're willing to work with in terms, it's just another tool to help you have that positive outlook where you can.
Yeah,
That's
which I
why I
think
love
is,
it.
yeah, I think that's what you offer as well. So with your book that is coming out, if you had,
Yes.
so once it's done and it's hardcover and we have lineups of children everywhere wanting to read it, what would be the best response you could get from a child who's read your book?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the best response would be that they felt, firstly, they understood that they're loved and that they have a voice and they can use it, and that they felt safe to share what they're thinking and feeling. And I mean, I harp on about books before bed with my boys because we read books before bedtime. I don't know. I speak to a lot of parents and they are in agreement that before bed is the time you get those insightful, beautiful conversations with your children where just anything comes up. And honestly, Lauren, I was not prepared in 2020 for the questions and the conversations that would come up before bedtime, but I made it a thing where I would be in their room until they fell asleep. And, I would think, oh, finally they're asleep. And then a question would come out of nowhere. But they needed to get those out. They needed to feel comfortable to speak about it. It was important for their healing and to just understand their situation. And I hope this book helps other children see that they can do that. And helps parents be prepared for that dialogue that's coming, because it's coming.
Yeah, and also we think that they're all settled and ready to go to bed, but they have thoughts that way on their mind too, and it's just like us. We'd rather get it out before going
Yeah.
to bed, you know, and that's when they feel
Yeah.
safe to ask. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I hope you get those responses too. Like I hope your book brings those out for children who just can't verbalize it, or they want to say
Yeah.
something, they
Some
just don't know
comfort.
how. Yeah.
That's the short answer I should have given you. I hope they take comfort from the book. And grieving and healing is not linear. And even when you think you've put something to bed and that we've moved on from that, they'll go back to that question. Like, I am answering questions with my 5-year-old that he couldn't ask me at 2, that my 4-year-old was then asking me, but now I'm answering those questions again, even though we're 3 years down the track. So preparing parents for that too. Just be as honest as you can in an age appropriate way.
Yeah, there. I completely can resonate with that, because you're right. What they're going to ask when they're 2 is different to when they're 12. It's different to when they're 18, and it's different when they're, an adult. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
do you think you'll always write this genre of books?
I love picture books so much. And maybe that's because I have a brain that shorts out pretty quickly. So I love that you can just punch out a picture book and, you'll go back to it, you'll refine it, you'll spend a lot of time. And it actually takes a lot of discipline to cut words as well, which appeals to me. I like being able to create a story. I heard once the sweet spot's 350 words.
Oh, my word.
So I don't know, still working on that. I don't know, because I never saw myself doing any of this. So I don't, and I love it. Now that I'm here, I am loving writing. It's just become such a passion and such a project. And I would love to play. Like, as a kid, I always wanted to write books, but I never bothered to go down that track. So I don't know what I'll end up writing in the future. I love writing poetry as well. And yeah, who knows? Who
I like that
knows?
this is a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if for those out there who want to follow you and see your journey, how can they contact you?
So I have a website. It's Jess Galatola, author at GoDaddy sites, because it's, not anything fancy just yet, but I did my very best with that. Or reach out to me on Instagram, jess.galatola, because that's where I am meeting so many fabulous people. I've also joined a couple of groups, but Right Links is a Brisbane or Queensland based group that I've joined, and I've met so many of the beautiful people that I see online. I've now met them in person, and feel really like fangirly when I run into them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been watching you for so long and you've written all these books, and then you're working with them and you're just talking to them. So yeah, all of those sorts of things for new writers are important. And I think the coolest thing about our community is I have never met a person yet who I've been brave enough to reach out to who's shut me down or not bothered to respond. People are so giving and so generous with their knowledge, and the willingness to share this world, even though it's so competitive and it's so hard to get a book out there. Everybody is so kind and generous and willing to bring you into the fold. And that has just been like, finding this family has honestly been one of the coolest parts about having a book. It's just been so good. Loved it.
And I think this was always your path because honestly, after hearing your story and getting published and not realizing, there's people who've worked at this for so long, and your story that
Yeah.
needed to be told is now being told. I think it's just such a beautiful way that you've come into the industry. And I really hope you do stick around. I can't wait to see what else you
Thank
produce.
you.
And
Me too.
I think your future is going to be incredibly bright. So, Jess, thank you so much for talking with me today. I hope we get to speak
Thanks,
again when your
Lauren.
book is out and we can see it in its physical form. I can't wait.
Yay, I'd love that. I can't wait either. Can't wait to share it. Thank you for having me on your wonderful channel and for all the beautiful things that you contribute. You are one of those people I'm talking about out there. You, like, I call you the greatest cheerleader of the, children's lit community, because you are always there raising people up. We've read your stories. Your story is amazing. My boys love it. So thank you for everything that you do for, new authors as well. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
They were my pom poms.
Yay! I love them.
All right.
A
Thank you so much,
plus.
Jess.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Bye.
Bye.